Let's talk to a man who knows a little bit about the royals and money, former Cabinet Minister Norman Baker. Welcome, Norman.
Kevin, good evening to you.
First of all, tell us about, remind us of your excellent book about the royals and money, because it's a murky area. What was it called?
It was called And What Do You Do? I use the accent advisedly, because that's what the Queen used to always ask everybody else. And, we should ask them what they do, particularly with our money. In fact, we've got a follow-up coming up next month, that has to be said, on finances called Royal Mint National Debt, which goes into this in even more detail.
Now, the thing about royal families, the thing about monarchies is the people of various countries, including Britain, history proves that subjects of royal families will let them get away with sexual shenanigans, all sorts of bad behaviour. When it goes wrong for royal families is when the people of the countries they rule begin to perceive that they're dodgy with money, that they're greedy. And I'm beginning to feel that Fergie, Andrew and certain other members of the royal family could be getting our monarchy into trouble. I mean, I know that Andrew and Fergie are outriders, but that their behaviour around money for many years now has been absolutely atrocious. This recent Epstein scandal involving Fergie being the sort of the peak of the mountain, if you will. They've been terrible, haven't they?
They have. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, actually, because I think the royals are more vulnerable on finance than on anything else. And I think the combination of arrogance, actually, and a sense of entitlement, together with exclusions from the Freedom of Information Act, means that they think they can get away with it. And actually they can't, because, you know, the truth has a habit of emerging, sometimes in different areas, sometimes unexpectedly, as this one has, but it does come out. And you know, as far as Fergie's concerned, I mean, she's got form on this. Let's remember, she was caught trying to sell access to Andrew for, I think, £500,000, incredibly, caught by the fake sheikh trying to do so. She borrowed his money from Epstein. She said, by the way, afterwards, she was going to pay it back. I don't think she ever did. When she was asked in 2015 if she paid it back, there was no answer forthcoming.
Yeah.
So I don't think she ever paid it back. So, you know, she says one thing that sounds right to the public. Oh, I think he's a terrible man. I've made a mistake. I'll pay the money back. And the reality behind the scenes is completely different. But, you know, let's be quite clear. Andrew and Fergie were thick as thieves with Epstein. And that's coming out more and more. And actually, Epstein is doing a lot of damage from beyond the grave. Because I think as more and more information comes out, more and more public figures are going to be caught by this.
Yeah, she called. She sent Epstein an email in 2011 in which she called him her supreme friend, and she wanted to humbly apologise for publicly rejecting him. And she said, "I know, Jeffrey, that you will feel hellaciously let down by me."
She wants her cake and eat it. That's what it comes down to.
Exactly right. Meanwhile, it was just a few weeks before that, she denounced him in an interview, saying it had been a gigantic error of judgment to have had dealings with him, and vowed to have nothing ever to do with Jeffrey Epstein ever again, which of course she broke that. And then when she also, in these fawning emails, she said, "Oh, I never used the P word about you, paedophile." Well, you could have done, Sarah, because he was a convicted paedophile. Now, there's another element I want to talk about, Norman, right now. She said, Fergie is putting forward now, always blaming other people, not really my fault, you know. She says, "Oh, well, the reason I had to write him this fawning email was because he was threatening me with a defamation lawsuit. He was threatening to sue me for libel." Now, I don't know what kind of legal advice Fergie was getting in those days, but this was 2011. In 2008, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of soliciting a minor, a paedophile child sex abuse conviction. You'll know this, Norman, because of your immense knowledge of these matters, legal matters, that is, of course. Look, a convicted paedophile can't sue anyone for defamation, nor can a murderer, nor can a rapist. You know, so her saying, "Oh, well, he was going to sue me for libel," it doesn't so much stretch the imagination. It's a lie, isn't it?
Well, it's probably a lie, but if it's not a lie, even if he did say that, I'd say to Fergie, OK, let's publish his email. If you've got an email from him saying that, why don't you publish it and clear yourself? But nothing like that will ever appear, because I don't think such an email exists. But, you know, the hypocrisy here reminds me of the hypocrisy a couple of weeks ago, was it not, with Peter Mandelson, because he was supposed to be saying, oh, I made a terrible mistake. And then it turned out he called him his best pal. You know, this is what's happening. People are trying to have their cake and eat it, trying to be nice to Epstein for financial or other reasons behind the scenes, at the same time as trying to maintain a public image which is contrary to that. And we know from Andrew, we know from the papers quite recently that Andrew, despite what he said in that car crash interview with Emily Maitlis on the BBC, was maintaining contact with Epstein long after he said he'd broken it off.
Well, yeah, exactly right. And that's what I said about Mandelson. Peter Mandelson is Westminster's answer to Prince Andrew. Their relationship with Epstein has extremely close parallels. That Epstein gets done for paedophilia, for child sex abuse, and both Prince Andrew and, of course, Fergie, we now know, and Mandelson maintained their friendships afterwards and wrote them letters saying, oh, it's terrible, you poor thing. You know, that was Mandelson. Similar from Fergie. These people, there's something about people like Mandelson, Prince Andrew and Fergie. They're the kind of people who never met a billionaire they didn't want to hang around with, if you catch my drift.
That's exactly right. I mean, I don't quite know what Mandelson's angle was, but as far as Andrew and Fergie are concerned, I've no doubt the motivation there was money. Look, I mean, at one point, Fergie was £4 million in debt at the bank. She had to try and clear the debt somehow. 15,000 Epstein, by the way, but have gone nowhere very far in dealing with that particular matter. But, you know, Fergie is like a colander. You pour money in one end and it comes out the other. She doesn't even be capable of maintaining a sensible bank balance.
Generally speaking, as I say, you wrote this book about the royals and their money. Now, I was reading an article yesterday by A.N. Wilson in the Mail, where he's lambasting Fergie and all this. And he went on, in the middle of this article, or towards the end, I read something that perhaps you know about, but it rather shocked me. And he described this as inappropriate. That apparently the king, Highgrove, his beloved country home with his gardens and everything like that, while the queen was still alive and obviously on her way out, as it were, the king organised the Duchy of Cornwall to buy Highgrove so that he could rent it and therefore retain Highgrove as a residence after he became the sovereign, because it might have been difficult with all of his official residences to maintain a private residence as well in terms of possession. But what I was thinking about that, well, it all sounds a bit odd in the first place, but I mean, how much did the Duchy of Cornwall buy Highgrove for? Did the king, in this instance, make himself, I don't know, £10 million, £15 million?
Well, I mean, first of all, Charles isn't short of properties. He wasn't short of properties as Prince of Wales. For example, he got the Castle of May up in Scotland from the Queen Mother. He's got properties all over the place. And the book I've got coming out shortly has a whole chapter on royal properties, which is just horrendously extensive. And I mean, how many palaces does someone need? You know, is the question there. But I mean, in terms of the Highgrove, my understanding is that the Duchy bought it from Charles's instigation. Charles then rented it, paid the money to the Duchy, and then the money came back to him through another channel. So it was a kind of circular transaction which took place. And of course, Charles, although he says the Duchy is a private estate, which I think is totally wrong, by the way, I think it should belong to the public, he calls it a private estate. But it doesn't pay any capital gains tax and no corporation tax. So no tax was deducted in this circular financial transaction.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know the details of this. I was just quite stunned to read this. And I mean, I don't know, perhaps the actual purchase was for a peppercorn amount. I don't know.
I don't think so. No.
Well, look, if he managed to score himself 10 million quid or something for this, you know, I think we should be told.
Well, it should be told. I mean, the Duchy's finances are very opaque, to say the least. There is a requirement for the Duchy of Cornwall and Duchy of Lancaster to report to the Treasury what they're doing. But there's never a debate in Parliament about this. There's never a proper examination of what's going on there. The Public Accounts Committee tried in 2006, I think, under Margaret Hodge, to get somewhere with this, but it was blocked all the way down the line by royal flunkies not answering questions. And the whole thing with the duchies is quite wrong. They were historical anachronisms, which in 1760, along with the rest of the royal lands, should have been handed to the public purse as the Crown Estate was at that particular point. The only reason they weren't is because we're basically worthless at that point. But the royals have been squatting on these estates ever since. But really, they ought to belong to the public. And it's time the duchies were round up into the Crown Estate, and the public got the benefit. Charles is getting 25 million or thereabouts each year for the Duchy of Lancaster for doing nothing. William's now getting about the same amount of money for the Duchy of Cornwall for doing nothing. These are huge pay packets that should be going into the Treasury.
Well, yeah, indeed. And in terms of Fergie, I mean, she's been fired from 7 charities. I don't know if she's a patron of many more. She can't be that many more charities that had her on board. But, we know her background. You remember the toe sucking, the affair she had with Johnny Bryan while she was still married to Prince Andrew. And, of course, she was caught in that News of the World sting. Thinking she was taking, I think it was £500,000.
About £500,000.
Yeah, in order to organise access to the royal family. It's essentially selling the royals down the river. And she seemed to sort of lurch from scandal to scandal, to mistake. I'm just wondering why those charities wanted her as a patron in the first place.
Well, I totally agree. Well, she's tried to reinvent herself in public, of course, as this kind of nice, warm, cuddly person writing children's books. And that's the image she's been presenting to the world at large. And she got a bit of credit for doing Weight Watchers and stuff, which wasn't really a real thing to do, but it looked like she was trying to become a normal person. So her public image was improving over the years. But there's a whole lot of stuff, behind the scenes that wasn't very attractive at all, some of which is now coming out in more detail. But, her and Andrew, I think, have done the royal family an immense amount of damage over the years. They continue to do so. The fact that she's now losing associations with charities, of course, is following what happened to Andrew, because as soon as his shenanigans came out, he was removed from a whole lot of charities. She's trying to catch up with him, perhaps.
Giving him a good run for his money, if I can put it that way. Finally, we read today that Prince William is particularly angry at both Andrew and Fergie. We saw those awkward pictures of William standing next to Andrew at the Duchess of Kent's funeral last week, where William clearly did not want to say a word to his wicked uncle, as it were. William, is telling the king, or urging the king, said, look, we must not only banish these people from public royal life, we must banish them privately as well. Do you think that's probably on the cards? I mean, do you think that the king will say, well, enough is enough? It does seem as if, they finally, this awful couple have really crossed the line this time.
Well, they have, and the public opinion polling shows that I think it's 5% only approve of Prince Andrew's existence and activities as a royal. I have to say, I don't know who those 5% are, but they're clearly not following,
That's true.
following the news. But look, I mean, I think when William becomes king, and I don't know when that will be, but it's going to be, not that long away, I suppose, given Charles's age, he will take a much harder line with Andrew and indeed with Harry, I think, than Charles has done. Charles has been a bit soft on that. It's his brother; he's known him for years and that. Yeah. And in a way, you could argue that, why shouldn't he go along to the funeral or a memorial service for a member of his family? I don't want to be too harsh on the guy. That's a private thing. But William would have been quite keen, as you quite rightly say, Kevin, to make sure there was no photograph taken of him next to Andrew talking, because otherwise that ends up in the front cover of Private Eye with a couple of bubbles. I
agree with you about, why shouldn't Andrew and indeed Fergie go to the funeral of the Duchess of Kent? And don't forget, that was before these revelations about Epstein and Fergie came out. But you could see that Andrew was using the event to sort of sidle up to everyone he could, shaking hands, you know, trying to act as if he was on the road to rehabilitation, which after the weekend he most very definitely is not. What's your next book going to be called, and when is it coming out, Norman?
It's called Royal Mint National Debt, which tells you what my view is on the finances of the royal family. We pay for them and they benefit. It's coming out probably October the 18th, if we can get the thing together in time.
Excellent. Well, you come on the show and we'll talk about that then.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to read it. Thank you very much, Norman. Always a pleasure.